You don't belong here! I never left.
Revoke his access. The order came sharp, routine, the kind of command that never failed inside a United States Air Force base, and yet the screen in Sergeant Cole's hand didn't comply. It didn't even hesitate, it simply returned one line in cold white text, "Access denied," and for a moment the entire hangar seemed to hold its breath as if something unseen had just refused to follow a direct order. Cole frowned and tapped the tablet again, harder this time, as if pressure alone could force the system to obey. Around him the low hum of generators and distant jet engines filled the cavernous space of Hangar 12, a place where every movement was measured, authorized, controlled, and yet 20 yards away an old man pushed a mop across the polished concrete like none of it applied to him. Walter Hayes moved slowly, not weak, not confused, just deliberate, the bucket wheels rattling softly over seams in the floor. His gray coveralls faded from years of use, his temporary badge hanging slightly crooked against his chest. He didn't look up, didn't react, didn't acknowledge the tension building behind him. Cole exhaled through his nose and motioned to the MP standing near the entrance. "Get him out of here," he said, his tone clipped, controlled, the kind that usually ended situations instantly. The MPs approached with practiced efficiency, one of them already pulling out a handheld scanner. The process was simple: scan the badge, revoke access, escort off base. It had been done thousands of times before. The scanner beeped once, then paused. The officer tilted it slightly, scanned again, same result. His brow tightened. "It's not clearing," he muttered. Cole stepped closer now, irritation sharpening his voice. "Then override it." The second MP opened his command tablet, fingers moving quickly across the screen. Credentials verified, authority confirmed. He pressed execute. The system processed. A thin loading bar flickered across the display and then froze, not lagging, not crashing, just stopping. Then the screen refreshed on its own and returned the same line: "Access denied," unchanged, final. The MP glanced up, confusion creeping into his expression. "That's not possible." Cole let out a short, humorless laugh. "It's a janitor badge," he said, as if that alone should have solved everything. Behind them Walter dipped the mop back into the bucket, wrung it slowly, the metal press groaning under steady pressure. Water dripped in controlled streams before he pushed the mop forward again, back and forth, precise, almost careful around a section of floor near a sealed panel embedded in the concrete. One of the airmen nearby noticed it, the way the old man avoided that exact spot, not by accident, but by intention, like he knew something about it that no one else did. Cole turned again, watching him now with a different kind of focus, not just annoyance. Something else, something quieter. "Hey," he called out, stepping forward. "You're done here." Walter didn't stop, didn't even slow. The mop continued its steady rhythm, forward, back, as if the command had never been spoken, or as if it simply didn't apply. Cole felt that same tightness return in his chest, this time heavier, harder to explain. Behind him the MP tried one more override, escalating clearance level, forcing a higher command chain. The system responded instantly. Not with an error, not with a delay, but with a lockout. The tablet screen dimmed for half a second before returning a new line beneath the first: "Override restricted." Cole stared at it, the words sitting there like a warning that didn't belong. Around them the hangar noise seemed to dull, conversations quieting, movement slowing, eyes shifting toward the old man who just kept working, calm, unbothered, untouched by any of it. And somewhere deep in the base's network, something had made a decision, not a glitch, not a failure, a decision. And for the first time that day, Sergeant Cole wasn't looking at a janitor anymore, he was looking at a question the system itself refused to answer. The second override attempt did not fail the way systems usually fail. It did not freeze or throw an error code or demand a restart. It simply refused again, clean and immediate, as if the command itself had never been authorized to exist. The MP lowered the tablet slowly, his confidence thinning into something more cautious. "Sergeant, this is above my clearance." Cole did not answer right away. His eyes were still on Walter Hayes, still tracking the slow movement of the mop gliding across the floor, still trying to reconcile how a temporary maintenance worker could trigger a restriction that locked out military police override authority. It did not make sense, and in a place built entirely on structure and logic, something that did not make sense was not just inconvenient, it was dangerous, run it through Central, Cole said finally, his voice quieter now, more controlled. The MP nodded and keyed in a request to the base network, routing the command through a higher-level access node. The system accepted the request instantly, then paused, not long, just long enough for the air around them to feel heavier. Then the response came back, not in red, not flagged as an error, just plain text, simple and final, request denied at source. The MP swallowed. It is blocking upstream, he said, almost to himself. Cole's jaw tightened. That is not how access control works, he replied, but even as he said it, he knew the system was not malfunctioning, it was choosing. Behind them one of the younger airmen shifted his stance, eyes fixed on Walter. There was something about the way the old man moved, not hesitant, not uncertain, but exact. Like every pass of the mop was placed with intention, especially near that sealed panel in the floor, the one marked with a faded warning stencil that most people ignored because it had been there longer than anyone currently stationed on base. The airman stepped closer, just enough to see it clearly. Walter's mop stopped an inch short of the panel edge every time, never touching it, never crossing over, like he understood its boundaries better than anyone else in the hangar. Sergeant, the airman said carefully. He is not cleaning randomly. Cole glanced at him, irritation flickering. What are you talking about? The airman hesitated, then pointed subtly toward the floor. He is avoiding that section, every time. Cole looked back, watching more closely now, and there it was, the pattern, subtle but undeniable. Walter was not just cleaning, he was navigating. The realization settled in slowly, uncomfortable. The MP tried one more escalation. This time tagging the request with command-level authorization, a step that should have forced the system to comply or at least return a traceable denial code. The tablet processed, then dimmed again, the same pause, the same quiet refusal, but this time an additional line appeared beneath the previous message, System Protection Active. The word sat there without explanation, without classification, just present. The MP took a step back as if distance might clarify it. Protection for what? He whispered. No one answered, because no one knew, except maybe the old man who had not looked up once, who had not acknowledged any of it, who continued to move at the same steady pace, forward, back, forward, as if the entire base could argue with itself and it would not change a single thing he was doing. Cole felt something shift then, not just frustration, something deeper, the kind of instinct that told you when a situation was no longer under your control. And for the first time since the order was given, he did not reach for the tablet, he did not issue another command. He just stood there watching Walter Hayes, while behind the walls of the hangar and deep inside the systems that governed the base, something had already made its decision, and it was not asking for permission. The hangar did not return to normal, not after the system refused a third time, not after the word System Protection Active appeared without explanation. The usual rhythm of the base had been interrupted and everyone felt it even if no one said it out loud. Conversation stayed low, movement stayed cautious, and every glance kept drifting back to the same point on the floor where Walter Hayes continued his quiet, methodical work. The airman who had noticed the pattern stepped closer again. Slower this time, careful not to draw attention. He crouched slightly near the sealed panel, reading the faded markings that had long ago blended into the background of the hangar. Most people ignored it because it looked old, outdated, irrelevant, but up close the details told a different story. The panel was not standard issue, its bolts were not uniform, its edges slightly reinforced. And the warning label was not a typical maintenance marking, it was older, from a program that had been decommissioned decades ago, or at least that was what everyone had been told. The airman stood back up, his expression shifting from curiosity to something closer to concern. Sergeant, he said again, quieter now, this panel should not even be here. Cole did not respond immediately, his eyes narrowing as he stepped closer himself. He had walked past that section of floor hundreds of times and never questioned it. Because no one did, because the system never gave them a reason to, until now. Walter moved the mop again, stopping just short of the panel's edge, the same precise distance, not an accident. Not a guess, a measurement. Cole's voice came out lower this time, less force, more calculation. Old man, he said, what is under that panel? Walter did not answer, did not even slow. The mop continued its steady path, water spreading evenly across the concrete, reflecting the overhead lights in thin, controlled lines. Cole took another step closer, his boots stopping just inches from the panel. And for a moment he considered crossing over it, just stepping onto it to prove to himself that it was nothing, just another piece of metal in the floor, but something held him back, not fear, not exactly, more like instinct, the same kind of instinct that told you when you were about to make a mistake you could not undo. Behind him the MP's tablet pinged softly, a new update coming through from the central system. The officer looked down, eyes scanning quickly, then freezing on the screen. "Sergeant," he said. His voice no longer steady. "There is a new restriction." Cole turned. "What kind of restriction?" The MP hesitated for half a second, then read it out. "Area lock initiated." The words seemed to settle into the air like a quiet warning, and almost immediately, a low mechanical sound echoed from the far side of the hangar, not loud, but unmistakable. A set of internal security doors began to close, slow and controlled, sealing off sections of the facility one by one. No alarms, no flashing lights, just a silent reconfiguration of space. Cole's eyes snapped back to Walter, who had not reacted at all, not to the sound, not to the change. He simply adjusted his grip on the mop and continued working, as if he had expected it, as if this was not an escalation, but a continuation. The airman felt it then, the shift from confusion to something heavier, something that made the back of his neck tighten. "Sir, this is not a malfunction," he said quietly. Cole did not argue, because he knew it was true. Systems did not isolate entire areas without cause, they did not override command chains without reason, and they did not activate protection protocols for temporary maintenance staff, unless that staff was not what they appeared to be. Cole looked down at the panel again, then back at Walter Hayes, and for the first time since the situation began, he did not see an old man doing a simple job. He saw a boundary, one that had been there long before any of them arrived, one that the system itself had just reinforced, and somewhere deep beneath that sealed piece of metal, something existed that the base was willing to lock itself down to protect, and the only person moving freely inside that decision was the man no one had taken seriously until now. The sound of the security doors finishing their slow descent settled into the hangar like a final decision, not loud, not dramatic, just absolute, sealing off exits that had always been open, redefining the space without a single spoken command. And for a moment no one moved, because no one had been trained for a situation where the system itself chose the boundary. Sergeant Cole exhaled slowly, forcing his thoughts back into structure, into protocol, because that was the only way to make sense of what was happening. "Lock down the network logs," he ordered, his voice controlled but tighter than before. The MP nodded quickly, fingers already moving across the tablet, pulling up system activity records, tracing the origin of the override denial, tracing the protection protocol, tracing anything that could explain why a temporary maintenance worker had just triggered a base-level response. The tablet flickered as data loaded, then stalled, not frozen, not broken, just incomplete. Entire sections of the log were missing, not corrupted, not erased, simply inaccessible, flagged beyond their clearance level. The MP looked up, confusion turning into unease. "Sergeant, parts of the system are not visible." Cole's jaw tightened. "Everything on this base is visible," he said, but the words did not carry the same certainty they would have an hour ago, because the evidence in front of him was saying otherwise. Behind them the airman took another step closer to Walter, watching more carefully now, not with curiosity, but with attention, real attention, the kind that notices patterns others miss. Walter's movements had not changed, not once. Every pass of the mop followed the same path, the same distance from the panel, the same controlled pressure, as if he was not cleaning the floor but maintaining something unseen, preserving a boundary no one else understood. The airman spoke quietly, almost to himself. "He is not avoiding it, he is protecting it." The words hung there, and this time Cole did not dismiss them, because they fit too well with everything else that had gone wrong, or rather, everything that had gone exactly as the system intended. Cole turned back to the panel, studying it more closely now. The reinforced edges, the non-standard bolts, the faded marking that did not match any current classification. It was not just old, it was intentionally forgotten, and that realization carried weight, because nothing inside a military installation was left to chance, not like this, not something embedded directly into the floor of an active hangar. "Pull facility records," Cole said. The MP adjusted the query, switching from access logs to infrastructure archives. The system responded instantly this time, but the result was not what anyone expected. The panel was not listed, not under maintenance, not under construction history, not under any recorded modification. It simply did not exist in the official layout of the building. The MP stared at the screen, then back at the floor, then back at the screen again, as if repeating the motion might force reality to correct itself. "It is not in the system," he said, his voice lower now, and that was when it shifted, not loudly, not dramatically, just a subtle change in the air, like pressure adjusting inside a sealed space. Walter stopped the mob for the first time since any of this began, not because someone told him to, not because of the doors, not because of the system, but because he had reached the edge of his path. He straightened slowly, one hand resting on the handle, and for a brief moment his eyes lifted, not toward Cole, not toward the MPs, but toward the far end of the hangar where a secondary access corridor connected to the deeper sections of the base. His gaze held there, steady, measuring, and then, as if responding to something no one else could hear, he turned the mop slightly and adjusted his path by a few inches, a small change, barely noticeable, but enough to shift the pattern, enough to redefine the boundary he had been maintaining, and almost immediately, the tablet in the MP's hands responded, a new line appearing beneath the others, quiet, precise, undeniable, perimeter updated. The words did not explain anything, but they confirmed everything. This was not random, this was not a glitch, this was a system responding to him, adapting to him, following him, and Sergeant Cole felt it then, clear and unavoidable, the realization that whatever was under that panel, whatever had been hidden, whatever had been erased from records and protected beyond command authority, it was not just being guarded by the system, it was being guided by the man they had tried to remove, and for the first time, no one in the hangar was thinking about forcing him to leave anymore. The words perimeter updated did not disappear from the screen, they stayed there, steady and unchanged, as if the system wanted them to be seen, wanted them to be understood, and yet no one in the hangar could explain what they meant. Sergeant Cole took a slow step back, not out of fear but out of recalculation. Every instinct he had told him the situation had shifted beyond command protocol. This was no longer about removing an unauthorized presence, it was about understanding why that presence could not be removed at all. "Run identity trace," he said, quieter now. The MP nodded and redirected the tablet again, this time pulling up personnel verification, cross-referencing Walter Hayes against every available database, active duty, retired, civilian contractors, archived records. The system processed quickly, almost too quickly, then returned a result that made the officer pause. "No match," he said, then corrected himself. "No standard match." Cole's eyes narrowed. "Define standard." The MP swallowed slightly. "There is a record, but it is not accessible." He turned the screen slightly so Cole could see. A file existed, not hidden, not deleted, simply locked behind a classification layer that did not display a rank, a department, or even a timestamp, just a name, Walter Hayes, and beneath it a single designation, legacy status. Cole stared at it. The term did not belong in any current personnel structure, it was not active, not reserve, not retired, it was something older, something that had not been used in years, if it had ever been used at all. Behind them the airman shifted again, his voice lower now, more certain. "Sir, the system is not protecting him." Cole did not look away from the screen. "Then what is it doing?" The airman took a breath, eyes moving from the panel to Walter and back again. "It is protecting what he is connected to." The idea settled into the space between them. Heavy, unavoidable. Cole finally looked back at Walter, who had resumed his adjusted path, the mop gliding along the new perimeter as if following instructions no one else could hear. And then something else changed, subtle but undeniable. The overhead lights above the panel dimmed slightly, not enough to trigger an alert, not enough to be noticed by anyone not already watching closely, but enough to create a faint shift in contrast across the floor. As if the system itself was drawing attention to that exact location. The MP's tablet responded again, a soft tone this time, different from the previous alerts, more deliberate. The officer looked down, reading slowly. "Environmental stabilization active," he said, confusion returning to his voice. "What does that even mean?" Cole did not answer, because the answer was beginning to form on its own, piece by piece. The panel was not just hidden, it was monitored, controlled, maintained, and whatever lay beneath it was sensitive enough for the system to adjust the environment around it in real time, and Walter Hayes was the only person moving freely within that control, the only one not restricted, not flagged, not questioned by the system itself, Cole took another step toward him, closer than before, stopping just outside the invisible boundary Walter had been maintaining. "You know what is under there," he said, not as a question, but as a statement. Walter did not respond immediately. The mop continued one more pass, then stopped. The old man rested both hands on the handle and looked up again, his eyes steady, clear, unchanged, and for the first time there was something else in them, not defiance, not fear, but recognition, like he had been aware of this moment from the beginning, like he had been waiting for it to arrive on its own, without force, without command. The silence stretched just long enough to matter, then Walter spoke, his voice low, calm, and certain. "It is not under there," he said. Cole's brow tightened. "Then what is it?" Walter's gaze shifted slightly, not to the panel, but beyond it, deeper into the hangar, deeper into the base. "It is part of it," he said, and as the words settled, the system responded again, not with a warning, not with a denial, but with a quiet confirmation, the tablet screen updating one more time with a line none of them had ever seen before: "Core link verified." And in that moment, Sergeant Cole understood something that training had never prepared him for. They had not been trying to remove a man from the base, they had been trying to remove something the base itself depended on, and the system had simply refused to let them make that mistake. The words "core link verified" did not fade from the screen, they stayed there with a quiet certainty that carried more weight than any alarm ever could, and for a moment no one in the hangar spoke because no one knew what to say when the system itself confirmed something it had never been designed to explain. Sergeant Cole felt the shift settle fully now, not confusion, not frustration, but clarity. The kind that arrives when a situation stops resisting understanding and starts revealing it. Piece by piece, he looked at Walter Hayes again, not as a problem, not even as a question anymore, but as a constant, something that had always been there whether anyone noticed or not. "What do you mean it is part of it?" Cole asked, his voice lower, stripped of command and left with intent. Walter did not answer immediately. He turned the mop slightly, completing another slow pass along the adjusted boundary, the water spreading evenly across the concrete, reflecting the overhead lights in thin, controlled lines, and then he stopped, resting both hands on the handle again. "This place was different before," he said, his voice calm, steady, not offering explanation so much as stating fact. Cole waited, the MPs waited, even the airmen held still, because something in the tone made it clear that interrupting would only break something they were just beginning to understand. Walter's eyes moved briefly across the hangar. Not searching, not remembering, just acknowledging. "Before the systems, before the layers," he continued, "there was a core." The word lingered, simple but heavy. The MP's tablet responded again as if the system itself was listening, a soft tone, then a new line appeared beneath the others: "Core archive restricted." The officer read it quietly, almost under his breath. Cole did not look away from Walter. "And you are connected to that core," he said, not asking this time. Walter gave the smallest nod, barely visible, but enough to confirm what the system had already told them, enough to turn assumption into fact. Behind them the airman felt a chill that had nothing to do with temperature, because the implication was clear now. If Walter was connected to something that predated the current systems, then he was not just being recognized by the base, he was being remembered by it, and that was not something that happened by accident. "Why are you still here?" Cole asked, the question simple but loaded. Walter's gaze returned to the floor for a moment, to the thin line of water marking the perimeter, then back up again. "Because it still needs to be maintained," he said, and as the words settled, the system responded once more, not with a denial, not with a restriction, but with a subtle shift in status across the tablet screen. The previous warnings remained, but a new line appeared at the top, overriding them all: "Legacy maintenance active." The MP stared at it, then looked at Walter as if seeing him for the first time, not as a janitor, not as a civilian, but as something the system itself depended on. Something that could not be replaced or removed without consequence. Cole exhaled slowly, the last piece falling into place. They had not triggered a security anomaly, they had interrupted a process, something ongoing, something quiet, something that had been happening long before any of them were assigned to this base, and Walter Hayes had not resisted removal because he needed to stay. He had never even considered leaving, because from the system's perspective, he had never stopped belonging. The hangar felt different again, not tense, not uncertain, but settled, as if the structure had corrected itself around a truth that had always been there. Walter lifted the mop once more and resumed his steady motion, forward, back, along the exact boundary the system had now confirmed, and this time, no one moved to stop him, no one reached for a tablet, no one issued another command. Because the chain of authority had shifted in a way none of them could override, and somewhere deep within the base, beneath layers of code and concrete and time, something continued to run exactly as it was meant to, guided not by rank, not by orders, but by the one man the system would never allow them to remove. The status line Legacy Maintenance Active remained at the top of the screen as if it had always belonged there, quietly overriding every previous command, and the longer it stayed, the more it changed the way everyone in the hangar stood, spoke, even breathed, because authority had not disappeared, it had simply shifted to something none of them had been trained to recognize. Sergeant Cole lowered his hand from the tablet entirely now, not out of defeat but out of understanding. Commands were no longer the language that applied here, and issuing another one would not just fail, it would be irrelevant. The MP beside him glanced down at the screen again, scrolling through layers of data that had suddenly become visible, not fully accessible, but no longer completely hidden. Fragments of older architecture appeared in faint outlines, references to subsystems that did not exist in current documentation, designations without timestamps, protocols without origin. And threaded through all of it was a single recurring identifier, not a rank, not a unit, but a marker tied to one name. Walter Hayes. The officer's voice came out low, almost careful. Sergeant, this system has been adapting around him for years. Cole did not respond right away, because the implication settled deeper than the words themselves. This was not a momentary override, not a recent update, this was something embedded, something sustained over time, something that had continued without anyone noticing, or perhaps without anyone being allowed to notice. Across the hangar the airman shifted his weight, eyes still fixed on Walter, watching the precision of each movement, the way the mop traced the perimeter not as a task but as a routine, something practiced, repeated, maintained. He is not reacting to the system, the airman said quietly, the system is reacting to him, and this time no one corrected him, because it was no longer a theory, it was visible in every response the base had given, the lights, the doors, the locks, the restrictions, all of it aligned to his presence without hesitation. Walter reached the end of his current path and paused again, not for long, just long enough to shift direction, the bucket wheels turning softly as he adjusted, and as he did, the tablet responded in sync, the map of the hangar updating in real time, a faint outline appearing around the area he had just covered, marking it as stabilized, as if the system was confirming completion of something no one else had been assigned to track. Cole watched that update carefully, then looked back at Walter. How long have you been doing this? He asked, the question quieter than anything he had said before. Stripped of authority entirely, Walter did not answer immediately. His eyes moved once across the hangar again, not searching, not measuring, just acknowledging. Then he spoke, long enough that it does not stop. The answer was simple, but it carried weight. Not measured in years or assignments but in continuity, in something that had outlasted rotations, command changes, entire systems being replaced. The MP exhaled slowly, processing. So this never ended, he said, more to himself than anyone else. Walter gave a slight shake of his head, almost imperceptible. It does not end, he said, and the system responded again, not with a message this time, but with a subtle shift in the ambient sound of the hangar. The low hum of equipment smoothing out, stabilizing, as if something beneath the surface had just aligned more precisely. Cole felt it, not through data, not through the tablet, but through the space itself, the difference between tension and balance, and for the first time since this began, he understood the role they had all been playing without knowing it. They were not in control of this environment, they were operating within something that had already been set in motion long before them, and Walter Hayes was not maintaining the floor. He was maintaining the condition that allowed everything else to function without interruption. The realization settled in fully now, and with it came a quiet shift in posture across the hangar. No one stood in his path anymore, no one questioned his movement, because the system had already answered that question for them in every possible way. And as Walter resumed his steady motion once again, forward, back, along the line only he seemed to understand, the base itself seemed to follow, adjusting, confirming, continuing, exactly as it had been designed to do. The rhythm had become the only constant left in the hangar, the slow, deliberate motion of the mop moving forward and back, marking time in a place where everything else had quietly shifted out of alignment and then settled into something new, something older, something that did not need to announce itself to be understood. Sergeant Cole stood still now, not frozen, not uncertain, but recalibrated, his role no longer to command the situation but to observe it without disrupting what was already in motion. The MP beside him continued scanning through the data that the system now allowed them to see, fragments of archived protocols unfolding like layers that had been sealed for decades, references to early infrastructure designs, autonomous stability routines, and buried within those layers a recurring notation tied to the same identifier, Legacy Core Interface. The officer read it slowly, his voice quiet. He is not just connected, he is the interface. The words did not echo, but they carried, because they explained everything without needing to explain anything further. Across the hangar the airman felt it too, the shift from mystery to realization, the understanding that Walter Hayes was not operating inside the system had been built around him, adapting, evolving, maintaining compatibility with something that had never been replaced, only concealed. Walter reached the far edge of the updated perimeter and paused once more, not because he needed to, but because the pattern required it. His hand adjusted slightly on the handle, the movement precise, measured in inches, and as he made that small correction, the lights above responded again, not dimming this time but stabilizing fully, the subtle flicker that had existed before now gone entirely, the environment smoothing itself into a state that felt complete. The MP's tablet chimed softly, another update, this one clearer than anything before, core stability nominal. The officer stared at it, then at Walter, then back at the screen. He just fixed something, he said, not as a question but as a realization that came too late to be surprising. Cole nodded once, almost imperceptibly, because he had already reached that conclusion. This was not maintenance in the way they understood it, this was continuity. A process that could not be automated, could not be reassigned, could not be documented in a system designed after it already existed. The airman took a slow step back, giving Walter more space without being told to, because the instinct had shifted across all of them now. No one moved in his path anymore, not out of fear, but out of recognition, the kind that does not need orders to enforce it. Walter resumed his motion again, the mop gliding across the concrete with the same steady rhythm. But now every movement carried context, every inch of ground he covered was part of something larger than the floor beneath their feet, and as he continued, the system followed in quiet synchronization, updating, confirming, maintaining, not reacting anymore but aligning, as if it had been waiting for this exact sequence to complete. Sergeant Cole looked down at the panel one last time. The piece of metal that no longer seemed like a hidden anomaly but like a boundary marker for something far deeper, something integrated into the very structure of the base. And then he looked back at Walter Hayes, the man no one had noticed until the system refused to let him be removed, and in that moment, the hierarchy of the situation settled fully into place, not written in rank or authority, but in function, in necessity, in the quiet understanding that some roles do not come with titles, they come with permanence. And as the hangar returned to its steady hum, not the same as before but more complete, more stable, more aligned, Walter continued his work. Without pause, without acknowledgement, exactly as he always had, and exactly as the system expected him to. Nothing announced the end of it, there was no signal, no alert, no command confirming completion, just the quiet absence of resistance, the kind that only becomes noticeable when something that once pushed back no longer needs to. The hangar had settled fully now, not into silence, but into balance, the low hum of equipment steady, the lighting even, the air no longer carrying that subtle tension that had filled it earlier. Sergeant Cole stood with his hands lowered, no device, no orders, no need for either, because the situation had moved beyond anything those tools could control. The MP glanced at the tablet one more time, scrolling through the final updates, every warning cleared, every restriction resolved, the only line remaining at the top of the display unchanged, legacy maintenance active, and beneath it, no further instructions, no additional notes, just a system continuing exactly as it was meant to. The airman shifted slightly, watching Walter Hayes with a different kind of attention now, not curiosity, not confusion, but respect, quiet and unspoken, the kind that does not need to be acknowledged to exist. Walter moved along the final stretch of the perimeter, the mop gliding in smooth, even strokes, the water reflecting the overhead lights in thin lines that disappeared as quickly as they formed, leaving behind a surface that looked unchanged, but felt different in a way none of them could explain. He reached the point where he had begun, the original line where everything had first been noticed, and for a brief moment, he paused, not because the task required it, but because the cycle had come full circle. His hands rested on the handle, his posture steady, unchanged. As if time itself had simply moved around him instead of through him, Sergeant Cole stepped forward slightly, not crossing into the space Walter had maintained, just close enough to speak without raising his voice. "Is it done?" he asked, the question simple, almost unnecessary. Walter looked up, his eyes clear, calm, carrying none of the weight the others felt, and he gave a small nod, not a conclusion, not a finality, just an acknowledgement that this part, this cycle, had reached its point of balance. "For now," he said. The words soft, but certain, and that was all the explanation anyone received. The MP's tablet responded one last time, a quiet tone, then a final update appeared beneath the status line: "System stable." The words did not flash, did not demand attention, they simply existed, confirming what everyone in the hangar could already feel. The environment had aligned, whatever had been monitored, adjusted, maintained, it had reached the condition it was designed to hold, and with that, the invisible tension that had guided every movement quietly released. Walter lifted the mop again, not with urgency, not with purpose beyond what he had always been doing, and turned the bucket slowly, beginning a new path that extended beyond the area they had been watching, as if the work had never been confined to a single place, as if it continued beyond what they could see. The wheels rolled softly across the floor, the same steady rhythm returning, forward, back, forward, and no one moved to follow. No one asked another question, because they understood now, not everything needed to be explained to be respected. Sergeant Cole stepped back, giving space without thinking about it. The MPs lowered their devices, the airmen returned to his position, but none of them were the same as they had been when this started, because now they knew that within the structure they trusted, within the system they believed they controlled, there were layers that did not answer to rank or command, layers that remembered things long after records were gone, and people long after they were forgotten. And as Walter Hayes continued his quiet work, disappearing slowly toward the far end of the hangar, the system did not follow him with alerts or warnings. It did not need to, because it had already done what it was built to do. It had recognized him, protected him, and allowed him to continue, exactly as it always had, and exactly as it always would.